Welcome back here with Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about the Sarah Stock scandal. I never paid much mind to this female because, number one, she's a fake blonde trying to dip her feet into the cesspools of politics, which is always a red flag. She came on the scene due to a Jubilee interview where she alluded to the acceptability of countries remaining racially homogenous. This is just her mirroring stuff that's been said by fellows like Jared Taylor for decades, but because she's a somewhat cutesy certain chromosomes, all these sensitive young men, groypers, start cuck dancing because it gives them hope they're going to find some racist e-girl to propagate the waste with. Another angle to why I disregard such figures is I don't believe they have any business writing legislation, serving in juries, or being judges. That would solve so many problems in our society if they were encouraged to do something else. Frankly, if a woman is relatively intelligent and has decent genetics, she should focus on motherhood. Not, oh yeah, I need to be this public figure and do all this stuff. You end up with Nancy Mace, who's an absolute, she looks insane from my perspective. As to the broader story that's been ginning up over the past week, was an expose dropped by Milo Yiannopoulos, and people say, you can't trust what he says. He's a homosexual Care Bear. If you know anything about organized conservative politics, it's not very far from the truth. Back in the day, good old Terry Dolan taking these firm, principled stands while it was daylight, and some very hard positions when the sun went down. So he passed away prematurely. Those fellows who were going after Billy Boy Clinton almost to the note, they were all hypocrites. You have the Larry Craigs of the world. You had the girl who went viral during the Tea Party era with the M4 in the Bible. And everyone was, oh yeah, she's on the outside, yeah. And then turns out that some conservative activist was bending her over while her husband is trying to protect freedom in the Middle East. There's still rumors swirling around Erica Kirk and how many guys she was with prior to Charlie. Lauren Southern and Paul Joseph Watson. I'm just waiting for it to come out that Cory Booker was bouncing on top of Tim Scott. Hell, I can remember there was a campaign I volunteered for like 10 plus years ago. And the one guy, he was a tradcon, anti-abortion. His daughter was making the rounds of all the Chads who were part of that effort. So people that try to say this could never happen, you might want to check yourself. You're probably living in a bubble. Elijah Schaffer, who is the main character, at least from the standpoint of masculinity in this question, he came out of Glenn Beck. Wait, that did not sound right. He was with the Blazes, then he splits off to do this Rift TV, which there's an allegation it might be a Russian-funded op, but that's a different discussion. He is married, trad wife, and kids, although allegedly he used to be a homosexual. He was in a church with Benny Johnson, but he was kicked out because they caught him wrestling with a man. Now, Benny Johnson, there's certain voices who say he's a power bottom. I don't know. One of the more salacious aspects to this Milo project was that you had Elijah going to El Salvador, and some of the paid Salvadoreños were stimulating him with a dildo. At the same time, he appears to have gotten a number of these conservative females, including Sarah Stock. Just makes me think of that character Mark.
I knew it. Everyone is secretly fucking behind my back.
But more to the point, and I want to stress, this channel is not hating on women. I think he's a dirtbag, and I'm not going to go into the specifics, but punishment should be equal to the male and female in these circumstances. He broke up his family. He's probably going to lose most of the money, and I think that was part of it, that he was maybe not being as compensated as well as formerly. What is difficult to accept with Sarah Stock is that she's not a 30-plus-year-old trying to reinvent herself to find a simp. This is a girl in her prime that has seen all the flotsam and jetsam of the last couple of years, that was constantly signaling a certain way, and then decided to At the same time, because this is all basically in the last year, she was going buck wild in a different direction. What is coming out, and she admitted to this on audio, you can find it. I think it was from News Baron. But CPAC 2025, she gets tipsy, and Elijah Schaefer provides her with Benadryl, which Benadryl is a sleeping aid. And I remember that fat booty Latina. She was like,
Papi, I couldn't fall asleep, so I got my Benadryl.
well, he then proceeds to do the whole bakooing. And she presented like it might be grape, but if it was grape, why did she supposedly continue sleeping with him? You would go and get him reported and get him locked up because he could be a threat to another woman, potentially a woman younger than yourself, the next up and coming. Why would you just tolerate that? Well, there might be a reason for this, and we'll go into it in just a second. There was also the possibility, unconfirmed, that she had an abortion thanks to one of their hookups. You can see here one of her tweets. Most men will do whatever they can get away with. That's why there's the old saying about a cow and free milk. She's giving out wife privileges on girlfriend's salary. Why would he propose? This is to the couple that have been dating for 10 years. And recall, 2025, this is the process of her becoming a trad calf, getting engaged. And she's lecturing women, don't be a concubine, don't be a parazzi, don't have abortions. This is why it's so damning in a sense. It'd be the equivalent of Yogi Zarabs talking about being a tradcon, and then you catch him at the truck stop with Milo Stewart. Why are you trying to maintain these two identities? It doesn't quite work. With Sarah Stock, the signs were there if you were paying attention. And this is the first time I've watched the clip. I'm going to try to skip through it so that I don't end up getting copyright struck.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stock. I'm 20. I'm from Newport Beach. I'm single. I've never had a long, serious relationship.
There it is. Never had a long, serious relationship. I don't believe for a second that Elijah Schaefer took her V plates. Be very surprised.
How many first dates would you say you've had?
No idea, to be honest.
No idea, to be honest. This is supposed to be a Christian girl. So how many men are you turning down? And how many of those dates led to liaisons that you didn't consider to be valid?
What's the longest period of time that you've dated a guy?
Like 2.5, 3 months, I think.
I think. Can't make this up, my friends.
Christian.
Are you waiting until marriage?
Yep.
Have you always waited till marriage?
Yes.
Yes. That was probably a lie right there.
Both are virgins, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
No.
Yes. The way she pushed that out, it's like it was a bitter taste in her mouth. Almost as if Elijah Schaefer didn't eat enough pineapple. What I'm trying to say is that it's not that difficult to detect. You have to be either very inexperienced with women or you're just in love with an idea. And maybe we'll get into that a little bit later in this whole discussion. In this picture, she's having her marriage blessed by the Pope, so quite symbolic from the standpoint of being trad calf. Let me just harken back. I don't think I mentioned she was hired by Elijah Schaefer to work for Rift TV. And here's where the looks, money, status, the S, gets misconstrued by a lot of fellows. They assume you have to be a rock star or a billionaire. When in reality, and women are not beating the allegations, sometimes you just need the slightest bit of authority over her. I was having a conversation with this Zoomer, and he talks about a girl he grew up with. Very religious, right-wing Republican family. She marries this Hapa not too long ago, and he's got a good STEM job to make money to help support the family. Well, she confesses to this guy that I was interacting with. When she was holding a before and during college fast food job, she gave up her ass to the supervisor. Would you like some fries and snacks with that? I don't care if he's good looking. This is a dude who is not making a lot of money, who's working in a hot, greasy environment, and she's prepared to do that. You hear all this stuff, you got to make $500,000 to date me. Yeah, well, you were probably being bent over by a guy making $13 an hour, but you think you're entitled to all that. That's why I don't take these women seriously. You see, with Sarah Stock, she was smashing her boss, despite the fact that she had a relatively decent Christian boy. And let me tell you, if you happen to be in that kind of normie category, you're affected by the modern dating market, but you're still socially calibrated enough that in real life you can get stuff done, this is a piece of advice. And it ain't gonna work maybe for a savvy guy. Or let's say you're held by the cuckboard light and you don't know how to make eye contact with women, so you just leer at them in the parking lot while you talk to yourself in your car. Or there was another fellow, good natured, somewhat entertaining, and he would go up to women and say,
I'd love to take you out on a date, but there's just too many scrotal sacks.
well, let's say you are outside of those sections of humanity. Become a cop, be a CO, or a commissioned officer in the military, even an NCO. I was talking to this Clarence who retired from the military, and he was mentioning that even as an E4, E5, like a corporal or sergeant, you'd have Private Keisha with her ass in the air because she has to, impress him. Women have no ground to stand on when they talk about, I want this high standard, I want this 666. No. Maybe some of them that are entirely delusional, but I guarantee you, in real life, it's an entirely different ballgame. But they just don't want to admit it because then they would lose face. And here, a little buddy is rushing to their defense. Now, to be clear, he'll likely start backtrack cucking shortly if he hasn't already, and his fans will go,
Nick has been so consistent for 30 minutes. America first is inevitable.
anyways, Elijah and Sarah both sincerely believe in Jesus, but they're also flawed, as we all are. That doesn't make them fake Christians. No, but if you have so many innate contradictions, you should not be a public figure. You need to solve your own issues. From my standpoint, Catholicism just keeps taking L's. It's an embarrassing association to have. By the way, this is all religions. I saw some Hindu curry cells trying to attack whites over the scandal. It's like, you guys don't want to know what Goldberg knows about Priyanka and Pooja. Many cream cheesers, funny enough, have this perception of ethnic women as being untainted, they're traditional. It's called wash the dirty sari or abaya at home. Go inquire with Brother Amr about the Amiras. Oh, peace be upon him, giving up the ass for Muhammad all day, every day. But there'll be a good Muslim girl when it comes to the wedding. I suspect the reason Funtes is taking this stance is because he knows some stuff is going to come out about him and his personal life eventually. Whether he's an actual full-blown homosexual or more of a homoerotic, like emotional homosexual, it is what it is. I don't care. I'm saying I wish folks would drop the TradCon routine if they're not prepared to just get off the internet and go live your life and stop trying to freaking lecture everyone when you're not able to be consistent. This dude, by the way, he's saying the personal matter was publicized by malicious people. You are a malicious person, dude. You are not anything remotely close to what a true Catholic would be. You're a parody. You're a meme. And if you had self-awareness, you would not be a public figure. But again, it's all about grifting. It's all about clout and ego. What we should take away from this, religion is failing to keep women in line. The whole purpose of organized religion is to control the worst of human impulses. And maybe it works for men to a degree, and men are not perfect, but certainly women, it's failing left, right, and center. Why is that? I would suggest that it is the ability of gals to disassociate their sort of mind or spiritual compass from their physical body. On an evolutionary basis, it might be that, let's say, the tribe invades, and instead of a male model, you get Chuddy Modus. And if you don't want to die, you have to sleep with him. So you kind of just go out of body. You just let it happen, but you're checked out. When it comes to these girls who go to the mosque, the church, the temple, they're separating that and their soul passing on to meet the Great Spirit from anything that happens to their physical form. You would think if you're the one who's getting physically penetrated, that would be something you're like, hey, I don't want just anyone doing this. This has to be, it's intimate, it's sacred, but they let it happen. And so if you are using your body as just something to be employed by the Tyrone Collective or the Chad Parachiks, what does it say about how you view yourself as a child of God? And if you've ever heard the accounts of women who came out of cults, they'll say that they had to learn to be an individual. And part of that is having self-respect, that it's not just my thing is open for everyone. What these empowered females are doing, they're actually degrading themselves, sadly enough. They don't understand it. But the only way I think you can do that while also being religious is that you have to think that your body doesn't really matter. And to be fair, many of these religions do channel thought in that direction, which is why everyone says religions are popular with prostitutes. It is what it is. So where does this all leave Goldberg? Look at this photograph. Wait, this is the wrong slide. That's the girl that tried to kill Lenin. Yeah, I definitely would. The problem we face is that so many men are in love with a fantasy of what a woman's supposed to be and not the real thing. You see Sarah Stock and you think she's a trad wife, and then it turns out she's riding the carousel. I mean, I heard that Raymond Thoughts and Mine was tearing it up and Asmongold at the same time. I don't want to hear from chicks that they're religious and they want to get married and spread the gospel, because they're spreading other things before that. And they probably don't see it as counting for the reasons that I just mentioned. You know, I was out and about working on my book. I started talking to this 19-year-old, cute, slim, fat ass. She said, would you like to be my friend? And I was like, yeah, whatever. And later on, she goes, do you want to go on a date with me? And I was like, well, maybe, I'm not sure. But I suggest a place, and she was totally okay with it. But then this spot comes to the attention of the coworker group chat. Bear in mind, these are BBWs. And they start going, he ain't crap, he ain't crap. He needs to drop all this money to prove he's worthy of a gorgeous girl like you. And all this. And she gets gassed up and she's upset and she starts giving me grief. And I was like, enough with that. You want? We're going to meet up. I'm going to give you a hug. Do you want to do that? She's like, yes, please. So I go, I pick her up. We go to a gas station. I spent like $5 or $6 on ice cream. We had a phenomenal time. And she keeps texting me. She's like, oh, are we going to hang out again? I'm obsessed with you. You're so mysterious. I can't figure you out. This is just Goldberg being aloof, not caring, nonchalant. And it really made me think about it, because with all these gals, other ones I've been talking to, you know, over the last couple months, I peruse thrift shops, discount stores, the like. So I've been building a war chest of little knickknacks for Valentine's Day. When I say war chest, I've spent in total less than $30 for this. Well, I'm not trying to ask them out for Valentine's Day. This is going to be a historically bad one from the standpoint of women being with a guy, unless they're in an LTR, because so many dudes, they're on dating apps, which means nothing's going to happen. Or they bought into all these clips of you have to have 500,000, this, that, the other, or you won't stand a chance. So they're going to be by themselves, or they're going to go out with some guy they don't like, just so that they can do the symbolic stuff. Maybe they'll get pumped and dumped. You go a week after, they're going to be very bitter and crestfallen. And that's where Goldberg's can come in. That's too bad. You want to hang out? And they'll be eager to please and have low expectations, so it's not going to cost a lot. They will, providing they perform their womanly functions, at the end you give them that gas station rose, and they're going to be thrilled. And you have to just see it that way. You don't get angry and hate women. And you just be very laid back and, like Bruce Lee said, like water. Oh well, yeah, just flow. As to the question, yeah, but Goldberg, what about having a trad wife and kids? I'm not interested in that. And the reason I've said virginity is important if you're going to get married is because look at that picture of Sarah Stock. We'll go back to it for a second, if I can. Look at this picture. That dude is going to have some significant trauma and psychological issues. Women will be saying,
Oh, he's insecure. He's attachment avoidant. Oh, he's not vulnerable.
yeah, are you surprised? This is why you need a woman to be a virgin if you're going to get married, if you're going to get down on one knee, because you don't want to be humiliated in this way. I will give credit to all my ex-girlfriends. They showed me who they were before I got to any of that stage, because I refuse to get on a knee for a whore. I don't care what the logic is. She better be inheriting $8 million, or sorry, 8 figures before I'm going to even consider something like that, because it's utter nonsense and people are going to laugh at you. And they had to make this public. So instead, you cultivate a chick, and when she's actually really interested in you, you just let nature take its course. You be reckless with her. None of this, oh, I got to plan 4 years in advance, all this. What I've learned from inner city brothers that I've worked with is that you just have to allow it to occur. Don't try to analyze and pick the perfect time and make sure you've got the nursery's ready. No, just let it occur, because that is what they respond well to. The reason why these guys are getting screwed over, the ones that try to get married, like Sarah Stock's husband, is because they're responding to the woman's energy, which is chaotic, which is unstable, which is after cheap thrills, with this elaborate, I'm going to give you the world and I'm never going to leave. And this is exactly the issue. Now, I'm not looking to shady dip on being a parent, but I'm saying you have to avoid all these nice accoutrements, all this formality, because they do not actually appreciate it. If they did, then they would be preserving with a golden chastity belt that thing for the highest possible value man that they can get. And as we know, it's not what occurs, because you see it in the guy who usually gets it and is in high school, or it's at the fast food joint. It's not the extremely successful bald guy with beard and glasses who makes a bunch of money through super chats and ad revenue.